Introduce our next two speakers, Marek and Gosia from DNB. Welcome.
This is going to be fun. Oh, that was live?
Probably need that.
Devices and stuff. Is there any cable I can plug to? This is a network one. Oh, okay. It's not a network one. Do I have internet? Oh yeah, cool. Cool. Yes, probably use a separate display and present.
It's on the wrong.
How do I just like? Hi. Okay, how do I make it full screen? Oh, okay, done. Where are my speaker notes though? We had some? And I. Oh yeah, there they are. Yes, hi. So we are those two geeks from DNB, and just a short disclaimer, this presentation has been prepared quite recently, so might have not been consulted with any communication specialist. Okay, and now I can talk in loud voice. So, hello world, my name is Gosia.
And my name is Marek.
Weren't you supposed to stand here?
Okay, I can.
Okay. So, we work for DNB, and today we want to share a piece of struggle and glory of making a bank a technology platform. And we have a short agenda. In the next 30 minutes, you'll get a very general and very, very detailed, there's nothing in between, overview of what's the deal with the DNB, why do developers hate working for a bank, how can you make a bank developer's life easier, less miserable, let's say like that, and should you really let your developer keep the code on their computer. But before we do that, let's start with something easy. This is him, right?
Yeah, that's me. So my name is Marek, and my surname from Polish is actually Friday. So, but anyway, we have a Tuesday today. So I like to work with new technologies, especially with public cloud. I love to solve problems, even if I get to the point when, okay, it's impossible to solve, and then I'm trying to do it again. And I automate everything. This is, actually, infrastructure as a code is a key. And I try to help DNB together with Gosia and all new people who recently joined to DNB with a cloud journey, and also with transformation, IT transformation from the bank to technology company. I got married recently, and whenever I don't work, I'm spending time in campsites, waiting for the wind, or when it's winter and finally it's coming, I'm out snowboarding.
And my name is Gosia. I started off working in IT as a tester, and I was that QA that you would like to have on your team, because the QA that does development, testing, and production and operations. So basically, that's my private opinion, but I think that QAs were the proto-DevOps people, and please treasure them and respect them, because otherwise they will just progress onto another job, like becoming a DevOps engineer, which I am currently. So now I'm responsible for a CI/CD process in the bank, and I run a team of super uber talented geeks, and together we're on this mission to make developers work easy. So I've moved to Norway quite recently, after like one phone call in January that I had with this gentleman, because I know him from before. He used to be my mentor. We used to work together. He was teaching me the DevOps
I was trying to be a mentor.
initially. And, well, you know, like, when you get hollered to come and work for a bank, you're like, nah, come on, seriously. But he promised me that this is going to be very challenging, and we both like a challenge.
And now you know.
Yeah, so basically, she promised, like, yeah. Well, so what's the deal with the DNB? In other words, like how these two geeks end up working for a bank, and why did that geek not color the text in white? That the other question won't be answered, I don't remember. Well, basically, what he explained me is the DNB's transformation, and so I'll let him do that again.
So Magnus already mentioned that DNB is aiming to be a technology company with a banking license, and it means that DNB must think and act like a technology company. So we need to really focus on our customer experience, innovation, automation, and working methodologies. And we need to take care of the new business, new models in new business, and collaboration with third parties. And try to use our data, because we have a lot of data, so we should start using that data and using that insights from this data. And solid technology platform is a must in DNB to be able to actually reach that goal. And today, DNB is a traditional bank, as you know, with digital products, services, and channels. But DNB will continue to be a bank in the future. Yes, that's no other way. But is actually bank in the future the same banking, or probably it will change? And this is what we think. So what is DNB technology strategy right now? So we want to establish a new cloud platform. We want to build a large portfolio of APIs, and we want to develop a real solid big data platform with all customer insights. And why do we want to do this? Because we need to have a shorter time to market. We need to create new business models and have a new partnerships with different businesses. And we need to offer personalized products for our customers. And we have several initiatives already in DNB. One is building the cloud platform, where me and Gosia, we are working on that platform. Not only we, of course, but we are in that team. And we are building our data lake and custom big data platform. And we already have a lot of different business projects already building stuff in the cloud.
Oh, so it's my turn. So yeah, so basically there is the whole IT transformation gets its own department even, because they not only need to change the coding principles, but basically they need to change the whole way of thinking, methodology, of work, the approach towards development, the culture, the mindsets, and the computers. The computers, yeah. So this slide has not been approved, but this is what you get when you enter DNB, working for whatever position. Yeah, this is quite a seasoned HP machine with Windows 7 32-bit operating system on it. To develop, you use the on-prem VDIs, and to collaborate, you use Microsoft Link. So, okay, let's face it, this is not a development machine, this is a typewriter. But it has its perks, right? Because basically, you will never keep your code on it, so the code will never leak, right? It's secure it's really secure. The IT department has full control over what's installed, what resources are accessed, what websites are you visiting. So they may actually prevent you from accessing, say, SlideShare or Google Docs. The struggle is real. But, you know, it's ready for that. It doesn't break if you drop it, even intentionally. So, you know, like, now you want to hire regular developers, and this is what you get in the real world, a developer's machine. In regular IT companies, developers get like this super powerful machines to compile and build. And they tend to use those super powerful machines for private purpose too. And developers are not security specialists, and they don't have to be. And we, as a bank, we really need to put security first, right? So, yes, for the moment, DNB is using cloud to only plug in new projects and keep the core banking in this like hyper-secure old environments that we have no idea what's going on over there even. We have no control over them, but we don't really know when the day will come when they decide to put some more logics in the cloud, and we really want to secure the transactions, the data. So we are trying to be prepared for it. So there are two things we really need to balance, right? So yes, we need to enable developers to really utilize their full potential. They need powerful machines, but at the same time, we need to make sure the code is safe and secure. So when we kicked off the cloud platform, because we're a cloud center of excellence, but at this point, it's also a cloud platform team, we had a couple of issues to have in mind.
Yes. So the most important is to actually how to authenticate to the cloud, how to verify users, how to build a solid modern user directory, which is of course easy to use by developers and secure. And how access all of the tools. Should we just set up all of the tools directly on the public internet and everyone should be able to access that? Is that secure enough? Or we should have no public endpoints and try to expose all of the application over the application proxy, for example. And where to code? Should we code in the cloud somehow, or should we code locally on craptops or other laptops? Or should we use GitHub, GitLab, Bitbucket? We have a lot of options to choose, but we should host something, maybe something on our own. But as a bank, we have a lot of different regulations. And for example, we are not allowed to, or someone at least told me that we are not allowed to store any kind of data outside of Norway, or at least outside of Europe. And it means that we are not allowed to use GitHub or Bitbucket as SaaS offerings. So that's why we have to deploy something in our own environment. But how do we address all those problems? Let's talk a little bit more tech. And first, authentication. We need high-level components like single sign-on, access proxy, access control engine with trusted user and device database, inventory, all of the security policies around that. And the principle is that you should be able to connect from wherever you are. We don't care what network is that. And you should be able to access services. That access should be granted based on, okay, we trust you and we trust your device. So we exactly know who you are. And all access to services must be authenticated, authorized, and of course, encrypted. So let me tell you how does it work in real life. We use one cloud-based identity that we trust. So we have a user directory of trust, which is, of course, synchronized with our on-premises. We are enforcing MFA wherever possible, and we can, of course, use conditional access to check if user is, for example, in Europe, and then, okay, he's able to access this and this really confidential application, for example, or if the user is at least in our network, or if the device of the user is really secure and the trusted one, or if the user is in the particular group in AD, or if he's able to log in after hours, for example, and plenty of other rules. And we use SSO, single sign-on, to access all of the SaaS offerings like Slack, Splunk, Opsgenie, and we use federated access to, for example, if our developers are using AWS accounts, we only use federated access. So this is based on SAML-based authentication from our cloud identity provider, and we also develop a simple solution for them to be able to use the same access method to access the CLI and AWS APIs. And there are a lot of benefits of using that setup. So we don't need any AWS or Azure access keys stored on their laptops or wherever. They got only STS token based on our federation access. Yes? So it's temporary. We don't have to care about storing these keys. And as you know from other companies, we're struggling that people were actually uploading these keys to, for example, GitHub. And there's, in this also setup, we are using secure application proxy. So there is no need of keeping applications in public subnets. Everything can be deployed in private subnets, for example, in Azure or AWS or even on-prem. I think that setup is really good and secure.
Oh, yeah, but where to code, actually? So we were offered a Citrix VDI farm, so no easy development whatsoever. To escape that, we put self-hosted code repository in the cloud. And to enable development, we came up with our own solution. Because a regular developer's computer or a virtual machine to develop has the same requirements, a set of requirements. So basically enabled logging and monitoring and provisioned access and controlled access and no need for physical connecting to the network. So, yeah.
Does anybody know what guacamole is? And I'm not talking about dip, but about...
Not you, Dennis.
Not you, Dennis, of course. Guacamole is... Apache Guacamole is a clientless remote desktop gateway. And we call it clientless because we don't need any plugins, we don't need the client software, nothing is required to actually be able to access that. And thanks to HTML5, once the Guacamole is installed on web server somewhere, you only think what you need to access that is a web browser. And because it's a client web application, it's not tied to your computer device location. And as long as you have access to the web browser, you're able to access other machines in the cloud wherever you have access. And it supports standard protocols like RDP, SSH, VNC. So basically, that's the concept of keep your desktop in the cloud. And how it works. Guacamole components are deployed as a Docker containers. And we are exposing them through application load balancers. And user connects to Guacamole server over with the browser over HTTPS. And of course, he has to authenticate using our cloud identity provider with enforced MFA. But it's basically SAML-based authentication to get into the solution. And Guacamole client is written in JavaScript and is served to user as a Guacamole component web server. And then there's application Guacamole proxy, which is actually proxying the traffic to either RDP or SSH. So we have VDIs for our developers in separate accounts, separate networking, but they are able to, from this Guacamole, get into particular instance on, for example, this instance is for that developer, this instance is for another developer. And from the VDI, developers are able to access source code. They are able to access different environments. And currently, I think we have over 100 environments and almost around 200 VDIs running. But how to get that VDI? There's a lot of processes in DMB, yes? So developer has to request it through ServiceNow. Then when it's approved by someone, he or she will be added to the proper group in AD. And then from that point, synchronization will go up to the cloud, to identity provider. And whenever event occurs, okay, there's a new user in, for example, Guacamole group, it will call AWS Lambda function. And Lambda function will create a proper user and connection in database used by Guacamole. And then it will start to build a new EC2 instance. And EC2 instance is using the AMI, which is baked by us, and is a pre-baked instance with all of the needed controls, or maybe not controls, but the security monitoring, all of the tools that security needs to make sure that that is compliant and we are ready to use it in enterprise environment. And user data script is used to, when instance is trying to boot, then user data is used to domain join that instance to domain controller. So then you can use the same login and password what you have in your cloud identity provider. But in the real world, we were waiting for so long time for our IT team to finally finish the stuff in on-prem Active Directory setup. So we had to establish something temporary in between, which is temporary for like a half a year or even longer. But it works, but we are waiting for switching to the proper one in the end. And after all above automatic steps are finished, you are able to access your VDI. And we're also controlling the cost by switching that off or hibernating when it's not used.
But basically, as you're a developer, you're actually running a browser OS because you're rendering the JavaScript in your browser. So you will have problems with key bindings on your computer. If you try to cast it on multiple screens, it's undoable. And there was, because the rollouts are now from Apache Guacamole are getting things more funky, and you can actually copy-paste in between your operating system and the browser. However, you can still kill your session with just if you have the back button on your mouse, if you use a mouse, and people use mice still. So basically, for the past a very long while, DNB is working on this program to roll out stronger developer machines. But before they met us, they were planning only to roll out those machines with Windows 10 operating system. So for the sake of a spoiler alert and providing an enterprise experience to developers, we also rolled out Windows 10 on those VDIs in AWS. And there's a small problem on it. Yeah. Basically, Windows OS in AWS doesn't support Docker in any other version than Windows Core. What are we getting here? So if your project's artifacts an image, there is no other way. You need a stronger developer machine, right?
Yeah. But DNB plan was to support only Windows 10 as a fully managed device. I don't even want to know what does it mean. And it took us some time to convince some IT people to try to at least enable lightly managed device. Or it's our private, not private, but internal name of new machines, lightly managed devices. In the first run, Windows, of course, but it quickly turned out that we need something else, at least try with macOS. And sorry, no Linux laptops, because we are still enterprise, and it was not supported in software needed for enrolling that devices. So only macOS or Windows are available there. And what is the lightly managed device? It's still secure, it's still trusted by organization, and it's compliant. And it has a strong password policy, password rotation policy, and it can only run applications from different but trusted sources. And critical updates are enforced, and it comes with pre-installed anti-malware, and it's totally encrypted. And what is the most important for developers? It gives you a full administrator rights. But yes, from a lightly managed device, you can access corporate resources, but you can't access the cloud Git repositories directly. So how do you pull or push the code? We did the VPN POC based on enterprise version of OpenVPN. We just bought as tiny as possible, just deployed in AWS. But the most important part of the POC was that we still want to use the same user database. So users from our cloud identity provider with multi-factor authentication. But it turned out that that setup is really complicated, and we have to manage a lot of IIS components. So different MFA servers, then something connecting to on-prem ID to make that MFA works with Radius server, what was supported in OpenVPN. And security was totally not happy of all of that setup. But they say, OK, if we whitelisted from DMB guest network, then we can use it. Yes, or at least you can use that POC. So still not for developers, but we can at least use it.
As we were waiting for the proper assessment of the POC, the developers were still struggling, so we might have told one or two about that POC, and then a couple more, and they told their friends, and that POC quickly became super famous, like super famous. And people started using it on a daily basis, so we quickly ran out of licenses. People would start speaking on forums, asking their colleagues to actually log out of VPN so they can push or pull or push the code. So, finally the bank realized something was going on, so they went on to assess the security level of the POC. And they enterprisedly ordered an enterprise risk assessment, and we got our enterprise alternatives to our solution. For example, this one, a VPN that would allow you only to get push.
Yeah, why not?
Yeah. By the way, we got a risk analysis of Slack recently, and they asked us, do we have a patch management strategy for it? So again, we knew we are on our own, and that guest network thing was also a drag, so we realized that we need to provide an alternative.
So new concept was born. Internally, we call it Git proxy. And what about allowing access to Git repositories only on this lightly managed device? So we have only trusted device. We know that device, which is important. We don't need any VPN access. You can access it from everywhere, and only trusted user and an allowed user is enabled in this program, and of course with multi-factor authentication. And the most important, of course, end-to-end encryption is in place. And how does it work? Developer has to use Git proxy service as a tunnel to our Git solutions. And that Git proxy service will send HTTPS post request to the device endpoint, OAuth endpoint, to the cloud identity provider, and gets a device and user token. And then you use that token and device, it's displayed for you, and then you will log in with all of that username, password, MFA, and everything, and you are getting to the Git proxy. And from there, you are able to use Git over a Git proxy. The same like you, for example, do with a jump box or something like this over SSH. And Git proxy is basically deployed as a Docker containers in immutable infrastructure. But, well, reality checked again, and it turned out that the native applications and that device flow is not actually supported in the cloud provider. So there's no way to check if that device is really enrolled in our program. So we are working with a vendor if they will support that or not, or if we need to develop something on top of that Git proxy to be able to somehow check if that's really that device.
So yes, the struggle is real. At the same time, we are actually thinking about our contractors, offshore developers, people who will never be able to keep code on their machines. So we are now working also on providing better remote desktop experience and spinning up Linux-based VDIs via Guacamole. And also to think about, we're considering switching to a cloud-based IDE, such as Cloud9, but it needs to be cooler and securer to actually meet our needs. So,
In current state is actually useless.
yeah,
We're not able to
unfortunately.
use it.
So then we realized that, frankly, if we manage to convince the vendors to get the online IDEs to the point that this actually matches our requirements, this will be the coolest IDE online ever. And then we just thought, like, okay, so if you get such a cool IDE in the cloud, like, do you really, really want to keep the code on your laptop? Like, do you want to take the responsibility of and risk of leaving bank code, getting bank code stolen by somebody with a pineapple or something? So basically, should a developer have access to the code? Well, our opinion is we don't know. Like, it really depends on how compliant the code is, how secure your device is, and is the development process compliant, and actually, is the code good enough to be leaked in any moment and secure?
Yeah.
So, yeah, this is
Thank
us.
you.
Right?
That's all.
Thank you.